everyone. My name is Yuvika, and I am from Rental Scale Up, your foremost source of short-term rental news and insights. Today, we're kicking off a new interview series featuring property managers and founders who make the industry what it is. Seasoned short-term rental professionals who are living the on-ground reality, sharing their expertise, their background, what makes them tick. And to kick off these series, joining me today is Sean Landreth. Sean is the chairman and founder of Property Valet, with properties across Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia. And he's also the CEO of seasonal properties in the Blue Mountains, Collingwood, Mont-Tremblant, and Florida. Hi, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is great.
Amazing. I'm really excited for everybody in our audience to get to know you and get to know how you run your business, your challenges. I think there's a fascinating story you can share with us. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your business and where you in the locations that you operate in?
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely. Yeah, so a little bit of a backstory on myself. I have a wife, three boys. We live in the Blue Mountains, Ontario, here in Canada. We moved here in 2015 from the Cayman Islands. We lived in Grand Cayman for about 9 years. During that time, I spent a couple of years in the UAE and Dubai. I was in sales in Cayman and Dubai, working with the Yellow Pages there. We had a nice waterfront property in the south sound of Grand Cayman that I started Airbnb-ing, short-term renting near the end of our term there in Cayman, and as we moved back to Blue, I kept my job in the Cayman Islands, working with a company similar to GoDaddy in the domain space. But as we're here, my wife got into real estate with one of my good friends here and found that there was a problem with financing short-term rentals in our area. And so I went and I got my mortgage brokerage license and became started financing people and helping investors purchase properties. And once they purchased them, we had to then find them property managers, and that space in our area was really not really, it hadn't taken shape yet. There's a few people doing it, and like any type of business, I always refer to the best people doing the best jobs at whether it be selling real estate, buying real estate, financing real estate. You got a toothache, you want to find the best dentist, and for the first few properties that I financed, I found that I really didn't have anyone that I could really turn the keys over the properties to. And then I thought, you know what? I like this space. I enjoy helping these people with the financing side of it. Why don't, and I'd already done this in Grand Cayman in my own place. Why don't I just help them do it themselves? So that started with 1, 2, 3 short-term rentals here in the Blue Mountains. We have a very dynamic, tourist-driven economy. It's only a town of 7,500, but we have 5, 6, 7 different ski clubs here. So a lot of the wealth of Toronto come up here every winter, and they need a place to stay. So there is a huge demand for the short-term rental space. And so 1, 2 properties turned into 100 very quickly. Being in sales, it was easy for me to go out and sell or convince people that I could manage their properties. But as we all know, that's half the battle, maybe not even, maybe 10% of the battle, because operating a short-term rental is a very difficult thing to do. And I think that's the one thing that everyone watching this will understand, is that it's not as easy as it looks. So that was the start of Property Valet. And as I was doing this, my wife was selling and helping people buy real estate at the same time. And we built up a nice client base of people investing in short-term rentals. And it turns out my first partner was in my business, Property Valet, was one of the first properties I helped finance. And Doug Craig, takes care of all of our back end, our tech stack, and he's my partner to this day, along with two brothers, PJ and Brett, and we operate Property Valet. I operate seasonal properties as well. That was born out of Property Valet because, as we all know, that the short-term rental space is well governed. There's laws and rules around it. So not everyone can just buy a property and rent it short-term. We have a long standing mature bylaw in the town of Blue Mountains. It's been around for about 10 plus years, and we adhere to those rules. And people still have properties that, they can rent for 30, 60, 90 a season, winter, a summer. And that's the beautiful nature of the places we operate, is that people can come for 1, 2, 3 days a week, or some people come and live for 3-4 months of the year. And because we're in a unique area in the Blue Mountains where we have private ski clubs, where people actually, just like a golf course, they pay an initiation to join the club, and then their families members of that club for years and years. And they need a place to stay during the ski season. And so it doesn't make sense for them to rent short term or stay in a hotel or something like that. They rent a property for the season. And up here it's more demand in the winter. And so we rent out seasonal properties for the winter season to ski families. And that's how Seasonal Properties was born. When we made the decision to move into Tremblant, which is another Tremblant, the Blue Mountains, and Whistler were all built in the late 90s, I believe, by IntraWest. And it might have been early 90s, but anyways, so these are 3 very highly tourist-driven areas in Canada where people flock to for fun and 12 months of the year enjoyment. So we just happened to be able to be living in the Blue Mountains, and knowing Tremblant, we decided to set up an office there. We have 50 or 60 properties there now. And we're taking our first swing at the west side of Canada in Revelstoke this fall, which is another dynamic market that's turning into a 12 months of the year playground. So I know that was a long-winded background on me. A little bit more on me. My degree is in communications from Wilfrid Laurier in Waterloo, Ontario. I played NCAA golf in North Carolina initially, and then got homesick and finished my degree there, and then ended up in Cayman, the UAE, and now here in the Blue Mountains. And we love our life here with our 3 boys, our 3 dogs, and that's about it.
Thank you for sharing that, Sean. That's quite a rich background. You've lived in a ton of places. You've also experienced life from a salesperson point of view, which I'm sure informs your decisions now too. One thing I want to do before we go ahead is call back to you talking about getting your start on Airbnb in short-term rentals, which I'm sure you still list on Airbnb. And I want to share for everyone who's watching that Sean will be speaking at our next online event. He's joining the panel alongside Adam Nedved from Europe, and they both will be sharing their best tactics for Airbnb optimization in 2025, considering all the new updates. And what makes it really interesting is that you actually are coming from a perspective of firsthand experience and on-the-ground experience. So I'm sure that everybody will benefit from it greatly. It's free to register, free to attend. So I will leave a link in the description for anyone who's interested. What I do want to get to know next from you, and there's a ton because you've given me so much to think about, is you talked about, you've given me a little bit of insight into how you've expanded into several different markets. What really informs your decision to move into a new market or to enter a new market? Does data play any role in it? In what way? What metrics do you look at? What drives your decisions?
great question. Great question. And yeah, there's a few answers to that. The first thing, is density, and ensuring that there's a market for the short-term rental landscape. And then you want to look at legislation. You want to look at what the bylaws are, what the municipality rules are for short-term rentals. And then, yes, we can tap into all of the data, Price Labs, AirDNA, and all of that. And the fourth being is we really look at the seasonality of it. We're only an hour and a half away from Muskoka, which is a huge market for short-term rentals as well. Here in Canada, you probably saw pictures of David Beckham and his family up there just a few weeks ago. A lot, Goldie Hawn has a place there. It is a beautiful place for the summer, but it's only 3-4 months of the year. What we look at is what is there stuff that is exciting and fun to do 12 months of the year, and when is the seasonality of the market? Especially, we talk to investors quite often. Yes, you can make a whack load of revenue for 2 months of the year, but what is happening the other 10 months of the year? And how are those properties going to carry? What's their cap rates look like? And that investment side is a huge play as well. So we do really look at the 12 months, the seasonality, and then we dial that back into data, and the cap rates and the financing and the investment side of it. So that's kind of the four things we look at.
That makes sense, and this seems like a very holistic way of looking at your decision making to enter a new market. Thank you for sharing that, Sean. Could you tell me a little bit more about, and our viewers, of course, about your guest profile, people who frequent your properties? Who are they? Where are they coming from? And what is it that they expect?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, because that is a very dynamic profile. Because being here in the Blue Mountains, we've learned a lot about our guest profile, because we started up our operation prior to COVID. We also then were in the seasonal side of things prior to COVID. We went through COVID. We had the highs and lows of that, and now we're flattening out to a nice, we can expect and we can project and know what's happening within our market. And data does take a huge role in that, because getting the profile of guests through all your touch points, you can really start to develop and target your marketing towards that. When we look at the Blue Mountains versus Tremblant, let's say, we get a lot of actual interprovincial guests in the Blue Mountains. So people making the drive 1 or 2 hours to our area, maybe they come up from Toronto, or they come from London, Ontario, or, within, you could just put a map out within 1 to 2 hours. We get a lot of those guests that have stayed for, 1 to 3 nights in the summer, whatever. They come, they enjoy it because they just want to escape a vacation. But then when we look at Tremblant, we get a lot of European guests that are flying into Montreal, and they want to come and spend a week in Montreal, in Tremblant, and drive up from Montreal. So that guest profile is a lot different. But we also still get guests that come from Ottawa and Kingston and Montreal. And then you look at things like there's the Ironman that happens in Tremblant as well. So we get a lot of people that actually not only are coming for the Ironman, but they come and train for the Ironman. And then we go look at Revelstoke, which is our next market, and that is a huge market for heli skiing, cat skiing. They have the largest vertical ski run in North America at their mountain there, and so that's a different profile as well, because now we're getting guests that are making the 6-hour drive from Vancouver, or they're flying into Kelowna. So, really understanding your guest profile is you need to know it. But it's becoming easier because of all the data metrics that you can capture. Whereas, we dial this back 15 years ago, if you asked me that question, my answer would be different, because I wouldn't know all of the information that I do now because of all just the cottage industry of data companies that can tell you the profiles of this, or even, you know, getting more dialed in through your marketing and whatnot. So, you know, we have competitors that, you know, when we first started, we're still taking, you know, visas. When there was check-ins, they'd come and run their visa at the check-in desk, or they'd make their, you know, their reservations by phone. So, you know, if you just think of that, you know, you basically have to ask them a survey on the phone to get any information about them, because all you're getting is a credit card and their phone number, you know, maybe not even an email. So now, you know, you can really get that guest profile. We have a great marketing team here that dives into that, and then make sure that we serve up a guest experiences for our guests, because we don't want them to just come here and not know what to do or not know what to enjoy. We want to know about them, and we want to serve up the right things for them to do. So yeah, that's about that.
That makes a lot of sense. And you made a really good point about you can't really serve your guests if you don't know who your guests are.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, on the flip side, so we know a bit more about the type of guests who frequent. Obviously, there is diversity among them. What about your property mix? How is that? What does that look like? Has that changed in any way because of because as you got more data around your guest
Yeah.
profile?
Great question. Great question. Because, you know, as you scale up, you want to ensure that your properties are essentially close together, because, you know, you go from, you know, 5 or 10 properties where, you know, you just need a small team to service that. And then you're upwards of, you know, 80, 90, 100. And you can just think of the gas that these, you know, our operations teams are expending going from property to property. So we've had to make some tough decisions where we've had really nice properties, but they'd maybe be, you know, 45 kilometers or 30 miles outside of where we really want to be. And we've had to say, you know what, we can't manage this property anymore, because one, we're not giving you the best service. We're too far away from it. Two, it's outside of where our density is. It just doesn't make sense. And three, it's just not, it's not becoming economical for us to do it, and you know, it's an outlier. So we really look at density is a key indicator for that.
Okay, that makes sense. That's fair too. In terms of operational costs, that does seem like a prudent way to operate. Um, well, what interests me also is you're now uh, you're now managing closer to 200 units, and again, very diverse guest profiles. You're taking into account seasonality and year-round activities and all of that. That's not an easy feat, right? So, what has been your single most biggest challenge in scaling up to this number?
Yeah, that's a good point, and it has not came without its challenges. I promise you that. It was a grind. It was very difficult to do, because you're really paving your own path. There's not a book for it. There's not a playbook for it. And I would say the biggest thing for me was surrounding myself with the right people, and making sure I have the right partners, right employees, right, and even partnerships from a marketing standpoint. So it is really, you know, Caesar didn't build Rome in a day, and you really got to make sure you have the right team around you, because if you don't, and everyone's got to be giving up their all, and kind of you know, taking that holistic cradle to grave approach day to day, and surrounding yourself with the right people is the number one thing for me.
Do you have any tips for those who might be struggling with finding the right team? Because that is definitely the number one challenge for most people in our industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really being honest with yourself and your teammates and your partners. And if you see something that's going the wrong way, or it's not working out the way you want it, it's having those tough decisions and tough conversations, because if you don't do it, that's what's going to keep you up at night. Is the fact that you're not doing it, and because really at the end of the day, what's going to fail is your properties and your guests, and those are your both most important assets. Is making sure that those are well taken care of. And if those aren't well taken care of, then it doesn't matter who's around you. You're all failing, right? So it's you got to really have a big buy-in from your whole team from top to bottom.
That makes sense, and that's reasonable to expect and want in a business, no matter what
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about the good stuff? You've scaled to this level. Obviously, it is something is motivating you to do that. You see an opportunity here. What is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's another good question, Yuvika. I really love the fact that we're building a strong brand that people can rely on, that people from both a management side, but also like we're seeing repeat guests that they book their stays through us. Every time they come up here or to Tremblant, they're rebooking with us because we deliver. And I think really that relies on having strong branding, a strong team, and then a great, operations and guest experience. So I really do want to see Property Valet transcend itself as the leader in our industry in Canada, and I think we can do it. We have the team to do it, and that's why we look at locations to the best next location to open up, and that's why it's Revelstoke. And it is really building something that is going to outlast me, and hope in my family and whatnot, and be around for many years to come. So that's really what motivates me. And then the other thing, there's a lot of things that come off that. I get to help my community. I get to partner with good people and help other businesses succeed, because it's not it's one thing for us to have a great company, but we also, I was doing some stats the other day. I think we deliver somewhere about 15 million into our local economy, monthly. And it's incredible to think about the businesses that we get to support and assist, on their bottom lines by bringing guests and tourists to our properties that then spend at local businesses, and then showcasing Canada, getting I mean, I love the fact that we're in three just amazing places that people get to come and experience. No matter where you are in the world, you can come here and have a great time, and we'll make sure you're taken care of.
Nice. And do you, in terms of community, do you have any ongoing partnerships with the local community that you've tapped into that have been beneficial, or maybe didn't work out, but was a good idea at the time?
Absolutely. I volunteer with the local Chamber of Commerce here. I sit on the board as the vice president, and with that, we assist 200 other businesses in their, anything we can do with advocating for businesses in the area. I'm the president of our BMSTA, which is the Blue Mountains Short-Term Accommodations Ownership Association. So I sit on a board with 5 or 6 other guys that all do similar to what I'm doing. We advocate for the industry. We make sure that whatever the town is implementing, that we check the boxes and ensure that makes sense for us. So I think from that level, it allows me to help stabilize the area, and make sure that everyone's on a level playing field, and then advocate for businesses just like mine. And that's the stuff I've done. We have local partnerships with, say, wineries, or ski retail. Like, if you're coming and you want to go skiing, we'll make sure that your boots and your skis are there at your property when you get there, and stuff like that. So those are great partnerships that just elevate the guest experience, but it also showcases those businesses that do such a good job doing exactly what it is, whether it be making a great wine or delivering your snowboard all waxed up and ready to rock. So
That's interesting. Also, I am not surprised that you mentioned you're in your local short-term rental owners association, because you began the conversation around making sure your regulations compliant from the get-go, which I've been writing a lot of stories for Rental Scale Up lately about regulation changes, new tax regimes specifically that apply to short-term rentals. That seems like to be the next big challenge standing in everyone's way, all the operators' way. So it makes sense. So yes, if you are a short-term rental operator and you're watching this, look up your local chapter of a short-term rental owners, operators, associations exist in pretty much all big markets, and get involved so you can actually be part of the conversation and drive it versus being caught off guard, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
Uh, that's good. And what another thing that I would love to ask you is, I kind of have an idea what the answer is going to be based on your responses so far, but what would you say is your favorite part of property management, of short-term rental management? Which aspect of it do you enjoy the most?
Yeah. So like I said, so I love delivering good results to our owners. I love ensuring that when they come to us and ask, what properties they should invest in and where, we assist them, we walk them through it, we help them with the purchase, and then we onboard their property. And then I love, seeing great reviews from guests that then step foot in their properties and say, hey, I had a blast. This was awesome. That we had such a good time. We love the foosball table. The kids love the ping pong. We'll be back. Property of LA was great. They took good care of us. They had a private chef for us, whatever that is. So the owners and guests, those are the two that definitely drive me, and ensuring they're all well taken care of. And if they are, that means our team's doing a great job, and that definitely drives us.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for that response, Sean. Next is my last question.
Sure.
And but you can go in as much detail as you like. I would love to hear everything that you have to say on the subject. So what are your top 3 takeaways that you'd like for the audience to go away with who watch this video in terms of what has contributed to your success? So 3 things basically that worked and 1 that didn't. Obviously,
Sure.
everyone should take it with a grain of salt because your business is not their business, but there may be people who can emulate what you've done.
No, absolutely. And I've touched a few on them this morning already, but the first one is surrounding yourself with good people. If you don't have good people around you that are, advocating for you and your business, but also tell you the truth and are upfront and honest, and really are what you would expect in yourself giving to them, and you get back from them. Surrounding yourself with good people is the number one for me. The next is, what comes out of that is your ability to help the community, to foster good partnerships and promotion of your community, and assist any way you can. Everyone has their passion projects. Everyone can be a part and give back. And I just think that's, idealistic in life, but also, help your community. That one, it's good for you. It's good for the soul. But it also, it takes your company to the community and says, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is who we represent. So helping the community, the third being, follow best practices. Like I said, Caesar didn't build Rome in a day. And, there's so many tools, great people out there like yourself and Rental Scale Up that are out there and aggregating and showing, hey, these are things you should read. These are smart things to know about. And I think, the more and more you can look at what people are doing and doing well, or even bad, just be educated and follow those best practices, find out how to apply it to your business, and then do your best to do so. And then the fourth, I'm lucky in nature that because I grew up in the golf world, I still get to play a bit of golf, and by and large, I play golf with guys that are older than me, that are maybe retired, but they're all accomplished guys. And so I get to, spend 4 hours walking around a golf course with some, business leaders from our area or Canada or whatnot. And a lot of them have always said, the toughest thing in business is selecting the right partner, right? A lot of people get married, you have a partner in life, and we know the stats on that doesn't always work out. And in business, it's the same. So you really got to make sure you partner with the right people that know you, that get you, and I would say that it would be my, I operate a few businesses, And of that, I've had partners, some good, some bad, and you always want to make sure that as you go into the world of business and you're going to take on a partner, make sure you do so accordingly. It took, you know, I've been with my wife for over 10 years now, but we didn't get married overnight. You know, it took us, you know, 5 or 6 years to decide to get married. So, you know, and the same thing with business. It's a big decision, and make sure that you don't take it with a grain of salt. You really, you know, think about it and get to know one another before you enter in a partnership.
That makes sense. And would you say that's the one thing that could be the challenge, like
Yeah, absolutely. Big time.
being too hasty with finding
Yeah,
partners?
absolutely. Yeah,
Makes
because if you
sense.
think business in general, you get excited about ideas and whatnot, and all of a sudden you're having a cup of coffee and someone beside you said, "Oh, I like that idea." And next thing you know, you're doing business with them, and all you did was have a cup of coffee, right? You need to really think about it and make sure that you're on the same level and not just jump into it blindly. And I've you know, I've done that, and I've learned my lessons. And like I said, I've played with guys much older and wiser than me. They say the same thing. And if it's one thing that I could impact on your crowd and everyone watching, would be that.
I totally agree with that. Taking time with that is so essential. Everything is not move fast, break things.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sean. This has been very illuminating for me personally, yes, and I hope it is for our viewers as well. There is a lot to learn here. I'm going to make sure that I include the link to your businesses in the description for anybody who wants to take a look and also get to know a bit better your property mixes and just really see what is it that you manage and what does your business look like visually.
Yeah.
And of course, Sean's going to be back with us live on September 24, Tuesday at 10 a.m. EST. And that's 4 p.m. CET, yes, and 3 p.m. GMT. So please do join us. There's a lot. That conversation is going to be focused more on tactics that you can basically implement. Things Sean and his team are doing to optimize their listings for visibility on Airbnb in 2025 that you can learn from. And of course, like Sean said, when you keep an eye on what the others are doing, you can learn from their mistakes, you can emulate their success. So subscribe to Rental Scale Up's newsletter and you can find more stories like Sean's. Anything else? Any parting words, Sean?
No, I just appreciate it. Like I said, I appreciate people like you guys at Rental Scale Up and Uvika. You're doing great things, and anything I can do to help and help educate the wider community. It's a big world out there, and we're all fighting tooth and nail every day. And if I can help someone or someone's business, I'm better for it.
Appreciate that, and I'm sure many among our audience would appreciate that too. They can look to you for guidance, and I do think that it would be super useful for them. Thank you for joining us today, Sean. I appreciate you being here.
Cheers.